All right, welcome back to Two Stupid Guys Trade Stocks. I'm Vinny.
I'm Dylan, and today we are going to talk about which semiconductor company deserves your money, AMD, Intel, or Nvidia. So if you are a guy who believes in that future tech or just a gamer or just want to make a bunch of money, this is going to be for you. We're going to get pretty in-depth into all three of these and see which one should come out on top and should lead the other two in earnings.
Yeah, exactly. I've been reading all the headlines recently about like the massive silicone shortage. The question I always think to myself anytime I see like these bunch of news headlines about something is like, where is the money to be made here?
Yeah, it's gonna be here. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So,
all right. So basically, now these are just. It's more just to show the sizes of the companies. Obviously, market caps will change every single day. AMD lost like $2 billion today just from a correction. But essentially, Intel is about 2.5 times bigger than AMD. Nvidia is almost 4 times bigger than AMD, and 1.5 times bigger than Intel.
Yeah. Still lots of room for growth amongst these companies. That's one thing that's kind of interesting there.
A lot of room.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. AMD, if you are, if you're a gamer, then I'm sure you probably have AMD CPUs. I know I do. But if you're not, basically they create CPUs, GPUs, embedded processors, motherboard chip sets, all that kind of stuff. CPUs, essentially the brain of the computer, GPUs, the visuals. There's more to it, but that's good enough. And then basically there's also more specific server chips that are really kind of the big money maker for Intel and eventually going to be for all three of them because as we know, the cloud's just getting bigger, right?
Yeah. Don't really know what it is, but it sounds like it grows every day.
All right. So the bull case for AMD. Okay, AMD has made tremendous headway in terms of products, market share compared to Intel. Intel owns 90% of the data center market. And even if AMD even takes a small percentage, that's going to be huge numbers on their balance sheet. Okay. Mm-hmm. They have key acquisitions such as, I can't pronounce this, Xilinx. Okay. Yeah. Boom. Which is going to help AMD get more opportunities from data centers, which if you happen to look at their quarter one update, which we'll go into, looks like it worked. Also autonomous driving, 5G. And not only that, this smaller company beat the almighty Intel to 7-nanometer CPU chips, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. The bear. I'm clearly biased, so Vinny's here to keep me fair because this is supposed to be completely non-biased. So though AMD pulled ahead in terms of quality and competitive price for its CPUs, it still has a lot of competition from Intel and Nvidia. It also has reliance on third-party production as it is a fabless company. Vinny, you want to go into that real quick?
Yeah, so they actually hire out their production of their chips to a company called Taiwan Semiconductors. So they're kind of at the behest of getting a little bit of production capacity from someone else. They're not in charge of their own destiny. The number of products, you're in business, so the number of kind of products you deliver to market determines how much money you can make, and they are not fully in control of how many chips they can deliver to the market because someone else actually manufactures them, and they're competing with other companies like not for 7-nanometer, but Apple is actually the number one customer for Taiwan Semiconductor. So Taiwan Semiconductor has many masters that they're trying to keep happy, and of course they're out looking for themselves in terms of their own profitability.
Exactly. Cue the silicone shortage, right?
Exactly.
If all you are looking for Xboxes and PlayStations and you still haven't found one, I just want a really good Xbox. I can't get it. That's why. All right. So back to this. Intel dropped the ball. Let's be real here. They messed up. They let a smaller company absolutely destroy them in R&D. And if you listen to their earnings call, which we'll also get into, they are ready to spend money to get every single percentage point back. Okay, and that's not good news for AMD. They have narrow profit margins comparably, and Nvidia just entered the server CPU market via an acquisition, which we'll get into as well.
Yeah.
So AMD market share versus Intel. All right. Those are some pretty graphs, right? going up pretty much the whole time. But look at the numbers. This is important. Intel is the other side of that graph.
Exactly.
It is good. Don't get me wrong. They are greatly increasing. This is only up till fourth quarter 20 because Nvidia doesn't report for like another month.
Yeah.
So, we want to get this video out. So we wanted to be fair to all three companies. They are getting better. Don't get me wrong. Also, mobile, that's not phones. That's like laptops and notepads, mobile things.
I know. Still only, you're talking about like between 15 and 20% of the market for most of these segments. That's
exactly. Yeah. So they are increasing, but
Yeah. It's a real close up there to make things look larger.
It is.
That's how Dylan used to do on dating websites too.
And it worked. All right. So here's some upcoming catalysts for AMD. They are actually entering the phone market. AMD is licensing its Radeon graphics technology to Samsung. That happened like 2 years ago. It wouldn't come to fruition for at least a couple of years, maybe even another 1 or 2 years for the next Samsung product. AMD only needs to capture a few percent of server market share to impact the balance sheet, which we talked about. And guess what happened? We'll get to that quarter one earnings. They did it.
Yeah.
They also have Lisa Su as their CEO, who is my favorite CEO of all time. This woman took AMD at $2 to $90. She beat Intel in technology. It's the true David and Goliath story. It's like David and like 5 Goliaths. It's crazy, man. She's my hero.
Yeah. No, that was very impressive.
Clearly, I am not biased towards AMD, which is why Vinny's here.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I'm the old school, almost boomer-esque value investor. So Intel is the company that I personally find a little attractive here because, as you're going to see later on in this presentation, like they're just like a money printing machine, despite the erosion of their market share.
If money is all you care about.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I invest to make money, not to like save the kittens.
Fair.
Yeah. And by the way, my computer has an Intel CPU.
Oh, is that why it's so slow and glitchy?
Probably. It does have, it has an AMD graphics card though. Okay, I will give you that.
All right.
Which is also why it's very slow. Anyway, so Intel kind of has a very similar offer suite as far as products goes to AMD. From CPUs and GPU, CPUs being their predominant kind of product there. They're also largely dominant in the server market, including customers like Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services. They kind of have inroads with them all. They just got selected to do a large University of California research computer as well. They are still by far and away the dominant data center CPU provider. So bull case for Intel. Intel is a very profitable company. They generate a lot of revenue. They're constantly kind of bringing cash in the door, which allows them to spend more and more on R&D. You're going to see a little bit later on in this presentation that Intel, despite spending a smaller portion of their revenue on R&D, on a dollar basis, is spending significantly more than either of the competitors in terms of the actual R&D budget. So it's going to take them some time to catch up, but they will. They also announced recently a new program where they're going to be building 2 new production centers. I think they're both in Arizona. It's going to be about a $10 billion enhancement project there. So AMD, like I said, they're at the behest of Taiwan Semiconductor. Intel really controls their own destiny as far as the production of their own chips, and they're going to continue to do that. And even more so, the idea with these new facilities coming online is that they will also have the ability to act as a Taiwan Semiconductor kind of does and manufacture chips for outside companies. So they'll be not only making their own products, but also generating income by using their production capacity to make products for other companies. In terms of the bear kind of situation here for Intel, it's really that they got caught sleeping at the wheel, and both Nvidia and AMD have, for the most part, trying to eat their lunch a little bit.
Are eating their lunch.
Yes, they are. Dylan talked about how AMD's on the 7 nanometer process. Intel is still on a 14 nanometer process. They were supposed to go to a 10 nanometer, but unfortunately that was not ready in time. So they actually had to take the 10 nanometer design and scale it back up to 14 to produce to actually have their 11th generation CPUs come out, which is pretty embarrassing. I think they're showing how difficult the transition for them to go into a new kind of architecture has been. But yeah, like I said, they're still the market share. They're still the 400-pound gorilla in the room, and they're still making a lot of money. So, like we were talking about before, they still own a vast majority of the market. This is looking at 69% of the GPU. You're talking about onboard graphics, not like a discrete GPU, but they are indeed still very dominant in multiple markets. In terms of upcoming kind of catalysts for them, like we were talking about the restructuring, they have a new management team in place. They're doing this massive investment project of $10 billion to build these 2 new production centers. And then they're also trying to gain back that market share from AMD. Hopefully they'll be able to produce some products that are competitive with AMD. Their 11th gen processors have kind of fallen short of that a little bit. They're reasonable, but they're not the best in class anymore. AMD has definitely stolen the best in class in terms of per thread performance and overall like the CPU packages that they're offering, because Intel's offering 8 cores and
price and quality.
Yes,
they beat them.
Yeah, exactly. And then the idea that they can produce their own should make them a little bit more independent in terms of not having to rely on Taiwan Semiconductor there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So what's NVIDIA, right? So they design GPUs for gaming, professional applications, chip systems, autonomous vehicles, AI, data centers, yada, yada. They make GPUs for essentially everything that are not onboard graphics, okay? I myself have, I think, a 2070 Super. It's awesome. It's so good. Their graphics cards are just ridiculous. This is the Titan RX, which is ridiculous, but I won't get into that. That's fine.
Completely useless.
I mean, it's so the screen that you need to take advantage of it is like more than the entire computer. So basically, the shipments of desktops and discrete graphics cards, they are down a little bit compared to previously the 2007 2018 era, quarter 3, quarter 1. However, if we go to the next slide here, they're taking all, AMD is at like the lowest it's been in kind of a while, like 8 years, and they're only going up. And honestly, like I truly love AMD because I'm a little bit of a gaming nerd guy, but NVIDIA's GPUs are just better. It's just a fact. If sound off in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm not. They're better. AMD CPUs are dope though, but yeah, it's just AMD's at an all-time kind of low for GPUs right there, and also just the high-end aspect. They really don't have any solid competitors.
Yeah.
So the bear bull case for NVIDIA, there's a variety of applications that NVIDIA GPUs can start to do. All the ones I mentioned, they just entered the server market. I believe it's called like codename Grace. It's not gonna come to fruition for a couple of years, but the claims that they are throwing on there are terrifying if it's real. This cryptocurrency fad. See the hot take video.
Exactly.
It's here to stay. But they capture 75% of the market, and the 3080 is apparently the ether mining like god or something. Didn't know that because the 3080 is the most expensive one, by the way.
They make a 3090.
Oh yeah, no, it's you're right. They don't have fabs, just like Vinny was talking about, and honestly, they have very limited exposure to the CPU market. Just getting into it via one of the acquisitions they have, and they've been talking about an AI catalyst for years, and like their last 4 annual reports, and nothing ever happens. So I don't.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Upcoming catalysts: autonomous driving is legit. Cryptocurrency is here to stay. Oh, and that's the codename Grace. Oh, here's the claims. 30 times higher aggregate bandwidth in today's fastest servers and up to 10 times higher performance for applications. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, those numbers are absolutely insane. I'm not really sure what they're basing that on, but like that's yeah. If that were true, that would be pretty revolutionary. There must be like a major drawback to this thing, that either it's stability or power consumption that are preventing them from putting this out there.
Well, I think it's not developed fully. That's the claim. However, once again, gaming fanboy here, their claims are usually right. GPU wise.
Eventually.
Look at that beauty. That's an Ether mining rig, apparently putting out $20K a month.
Wow. Is this like a futon mattress?
Probably, yeah. It's got $250,000 in GPUs on a futon mattress.
Yeah. The RGB is really what makes you all the money, I think.
That's all.
Beautiful. Yeah. So this is kind of where I get a little interested in terms of the actual numbers here. You look at how much, like, once again, these are kind of, these graphs, you kind of have to look at the scale here and just look at how much more money we're talking about from Intel compared to Nvidia and AMD. I mean, look at this. It's crazy. It's like, oh yeah, I think they're doing well. They're growing up to like $3 billion. Like, oh, okay, AMD's doing well. It's like, oh, they're up to like almost $3 billion as well. And here's Intel, $20 billion, but they're like the laggard. In the group.
Yeah, but AMD, Nvidia increasing. That's the thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I respect that. Intel, like you can tell, you can smell the fear when they talk about their competitors in the marketplace these days. And like I said, they had the new management changeover, so that they're getting prepared to fight this thing out. And fortunately, you're going to see that they're coming from a position where they have the ability to fight there, which is awesome. Yeah. Same kind of thing here. We're talking about the actual value of the company. We've had some uptick here as far as both AMD and Nvidia, but Intel is still like that. It's like I said, that 400-pound gorilla in the room.
Yeah, I put that in there to keep me honest.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the cash, like, what are the reserves as far as the war chest goes? It stands to say the same thing. Like, you're saying, oh, okay, AMD is doing pretty well. I think as of this most recent quarterly update, they had about $3 billion now, so they have a little bit more than this. But and Nvidia has definitely had a pretty dramatic increase here with their launch of their 3000 series graphics cards. So yeah. They're pretty cash flush right now. They're looking for something to probably do with that.
Nvidia is actually the most impressive to me on the cash on hand. That's like a real steady uptrend.
Yeah, no, that's a nice graph. I agree. Intel, but still, you're talking about a company that's sitting on like almost $25 billion in cash.
Yeah, but wait till you get to the debt, though.
Yeah, I know, but that's very manageable for their size. As we were talking about before, like, the kind of market value here fluctuates quite a bit, but we're still talking about Intel being, this kind of fairly large beast, and Nvidia has overtaken them of late, but they're still fighting it out. Long-term debt. This is what Dylan was talking about here. AMD has been able to pay down their debt significantly. Nvidia has taken on some here, part of the kind of expansion projects there. Intel, same thing. They've actually been levering up a little bit. We're going to look at the numbers here in a second. All of these companies are actually still in a pretty reasonable debt to Ebitda ratio. That's what I like to look for, and to figure out how affordable this debt is for them. How many times have they gone to the bank and taken out 1 year's basically of free cash flow, and all of them are under 3, which is kind of my cutoff metric for the best class.
For me, I just want to look AMD's at 300 million. I just want to put it out there. Okay. Yeah. Imagine if they start to leverage debt.
They could. I mean, what are they going to do? Maybe if they would leverage debt and build their own like production facilities.
they had that in like 2001 or something, or 2 or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
it didn't do well, but yeah.
I know. All right. So price to free cash flow. This is kind of a way of comparing how expensive the company is relative to how much cash it generates, so that it can be kind of used to buy back shares or pay dividends, or any sort of ways in which we shareholders are rewarded for owning a company. And it's certainly when you're looking at this here, 122. That basically would mean that if AMD was not growing, it would take 120 years of their cash flow to pay you back what you paid up front for the business.
So higher is not better, is what we're trying to say.
No, higher is not good. Yeah, you want companies with low numbers. Speaking of low numbers, look at this little number, 12. 12 is very impressive. Dylan, now if you walk down to the local pizza shop, like how much times the free cash flow you can expect to pay per year for a business that you have to run yourself. Like you'd have to learn how to make pizza. Like 3 to 5x is about like the range you would see. So this is a company with a professional management with like $20 billion a year in R&D that you can own for approximately twice the price of like buying a local pizza shop, and you don't have to make any pizzas.
I like pizza though, but okay.
Yeah, I mean pizza is delicious. I would agree. And the same thing with Nvidia. Nvidia is making great money. They got tons of cash in the bank, but they're still talking about a 79 price to free cash flow. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to really live to the age at which I would have to be to recognize the 79 years that it would take Nvidia to pay me back. Now,
it's all about the growth, baby.
They are growing, so the number is going to likely come down from that significantly, but still, can it rival a 12?
Yes, we'll argue about that later.
All right, so 2021 updates. So far, Intel and AMD have reported their first quarter earnings. Where, like I said, Nvidia is due in about another month. Nvidia's got a weird calendar where their fiscal year actually ends like January 31st, December 31st, like the rest of the world. But anyways, Intel, the scary thing from their report was that they reported a 20% decrease in the data center segment, which is kind of a high profit margin industry for them. The worry with this is, where did it go? Well, we found out the answer to that a little bit yesterday. So AMD reported it. Yeah, exactly. Their earnings yesterday. And I mean, they crushed it, 93% year over year revenue growth, which is fantastic. This 286% was actually, I forget the name they use it's a segment of their business, which includes both the PlayStation chips, the Xbox chips, and then also the EPYC servers. They said most of the increase was due to the EPYC server chips because they launched new ones. I think it's Series 7003 as of December 2020. And they were about doubled their server chips kind of sell through. And they've been able to place them already in some high profile places, including like Amazon Web Services, which is one of them. And then, that's basically the highlights of what happened to all this money. Intel saw maybe some slippage. There's a rumor that Amazon is going to produce their own server chips like in-house, but that's still a couple of years away from actually coming to fruition. By that time, Intel might have their product line up and be able to produce the chips for Amazon.
True.
Yeah, who knows? So this is what I was talking about previously about the R&D budget. You're still looking at, AMD, $2 billion. You're talking about like another $3 billion. Actually, I'm sorry, that's like $4 billion for Nvidia. But look at this, $13.5 billion last year for Intel. If you combine these two companies, that's what, $6 billion? They're still spending more than double that.
And releasing crappier and crappier products. And that's my problem with Intel.
Agreed. They fell asleep at the wheel. They 100% fell asleep at the wheel.
Big bloated company, and this child just developed a way better chip in every possible category.
But how long do you think that lead lasts for now that they've awoken this sleeping giant? A few years. I will give you that.
2 years.
Yeah, I would say 2023, 2024. By that point, the gap will be pretty narrow, I think.
It's never good when the CEO resigns and then the stock goes up like 3%. I remember that day. That was like 8 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, no, it was more than that. It was in the fall, but
was it in the fall?
Yeah, it was in the fall.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, it's been a few months. So Dylan and I are introducing something new to this channel. We're going to attempt to use actual like quantifiable data and assess companies and be able to compare across industries by looking at a few factors in terms of like this is EV, which is enterprise value to EBITDA ratio. the revenue growth, their profit margin. Are they kind of a shareholder focused management, meaning are they decreasing shares outstanding? How levered are they? Looking at this debt to EBITDA ratio, this price to free cash flow, kind of historical numbers in terms of where they are compared to their past, whether it represents whether or not they're a good investment at this particular point in time. And we threw a little X factor category in there. What do they have that differentiates them in some way or shape or form? And then this moat is like, what's to keep the competitors from kind of eroding on their product line at this particular point in time. So these are the numbers we arrived at for these three companies. I don't know if you want to walk us through AMD there.
So AMD, here, you do the other ones. I'll do the X factor and the moat.
Okay, all right. So we gave them the enterprise value to EBITDA ratio here. This is another way of measuring how many years a company would take you to kind of pay back. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, it's like a free cash flow proxy. It's not profits, because profits can be manipulated a little bit. There's sometimes non-cash charges that make their way in there, whatever. The EBITDA is technically a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit higher up the income statement. In order to figure this out, though, you basically take the market cap, add the long-term and the short-term current debt, and then you divide it by the EBITDA, which they generated last year. It's looking at about 60 times for AMD. That's another metric. So 60 years it would take them to pay you back. That earns a 2 on our score here. Intel, much better story, but only about 8 years worth of EBITDA is what you're paying for the company today. So that's a 5 out of 5. And then Nvidia, 69 years. I mean, great number, questionable business prospect there, though. Revenue growth, obviously AMD is growing fantastically well. Intel, not really so much. They're pretty stagnant. Nvidia, somewhere in between. They're doing well, but they're not doing as well as AMD. Profit margin, they were all pretty good. They were all right around 20% or so profit margin, which is good for a company that industry that's delivering actual physical products. They're not talking about software companies here, right? Shareholder friendly. Do they like share buybacks? AMD absolutely does not like share buybacks. They issue shares like they're they got a granddad's checking account and just swiping away. Intel, very diligent about buying back shares and delivering some shareholder value that way. Nvidia was somewhere in between. They've issued some shares, but they're not quite as spend happy as AMD has been. This is that debt to EBITDA ratio. All three of these companies are pretty fairly kind of delevered, I guess you could say. 1.6 times is very reasonable. Yeah. About 3x is like a pretty standard thing you see in multiple industries in terms of their the leverage ratio. So they all earn full score for that. Price to free cash flow, once again, you're looking at Intel being the kind of king as far as actual generation of income at this point in time compared to what you're selling the stock for. I don't know if you want to talk about X factor moat.
Yeah, so X factor is what makes them unique, what makes them think that they can outprice the market, that kind of stuff. AMD is clearly a 5 out of 5. This whole gain on Intel wasn't in the last year. This started in 2016, 2015. With almost no money, they just continue. This is essentially the Lisa Su factor for AMD. Okay. Yeah. They have essentially just released products, and then everyone's like, oh man, that's crazy. I can't believe they beat Intel. That won't happen again. And then it happened like 9 more times, and it just keeps on happening. And then they just report earnings. It's like 93% year-over-year revenue. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. You can't beat that. That's a 5. Intel's X factor is just cash. They just have so much of it. So Nvidia is the same thing, right? They keep on. They're doing the opposite of sleeping at the wheel, right? They're just, I don't know, doing a bunch of cocaine or something. They're doing the opposite. Moat. AMD does not have one, okay? Because they have to consistently and just fight for every single market percentage that they get, market share percentage that they get. They have to continuously be on top of the ball. They cannot take a rest. They have to have foot on the pedal at all times. It's not like Boeing where all these things can happen just every 3 months. And it's like, well, there's only like one other company that makes planes. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Intel's moat. We gave it, we argued on these two, by the way. We gave it a 3 out of 5 purely because if they were to, I don't know, give Lisa Su $20 billion, have her go to Intel, she would kill AMD immediately. Essentially, what that is.
Yeah.
Moat 4, I might have even given this a 5 for NVIDIA. No one makes really discrete GPUs on their level other than AMD, and they just beat AMD every single year that they've ever been in competition. So it's not close. They beat it, unless you're talking about the lowest end where you can kind of scrape together a game in PC or something. AMD's your friend, but it's not even close. We did these numbers separately, and AMD and NVIDIA were tied.
Yeah.
And that was on purpose until it was the 37.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty interesting. I feel relatively good about these numbers. Like, none of them are perfect, but they all have attractive qualities about them. So I think it's pretty solid. So that all being said, Dylan, who would you buy?
All right. And I'm a guy who puts his money where his mouth is, as with the swing trade video. So now I got to find another $10,000 and throw it on NVIDIA.
Really?
You thought I was going to AMD.
I thought you were going to AMD. I 100% thought you were going to AMD.
Yeah, I'm going to NVIDIA, and I'm going to tell you why. That server chip, and I forgot that CEO's name, also awesome.
I don't remember.
I can't remember his name, but that server chip, one, is terrifying. Two, server like data centers are starting to utilize more GPUs for the actual workload, which could be a huge problem for one, Intel, because like it's their most profitable segment. That's not good. Now they're being attacked by CPUs from AMD. Now they're being attacked with the GPU workload from NVIDIA. I know they have a bunch of cash, and I think they're going to spend a lot. And they're a big bloated company that's been around too long, has too many fat salaries. I'm sorry. I don't. I'm going NVIDIA. AMD, I love you. I'm sorry. I invested in AMD at $3 and then sold at 12 because I'm like, no way it's going higher.
Yeah. I personally owned AMD from like 20 to like 30.
Yeah. I own them again at 80. I'm going to sell at 100.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to switch to NVIDIA. All right, Vinny, who you got?
Oh, man. Is it really that much of a question?
I hate you so much.
I know, right? Like, I wasn't going to surprise you. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to say, after today's quarter, I'm going to go with Apple. No, I'm joking. Intel, man. Intel is just like such a solid, like financially viable company, and that they've shown in their history that like they're shareholder focused and they will do things to reward their shareholders. They fell asleep at the wheel in terms of advancing their technology, but the new management's on board. I think they have a good plan for going forward. And then I actually think that this whole kind of fabrication for outside company thing could be a really interesting X factor, because Taiwan Semiconductor has been on an absolute tear for years now, and we're talking about the silicone shortage in the United States. And I think having another company that's producing not only their more in-house chips, but also able to fabricate chips for other companies is going to be a real game changer.
That's true. Essentially, you have like a young athletic boxer who just like won like 8 fights facing the 85-year-old boxer who's got like 90 championships, and we're going to see who wins.
Yeah, sure. Perfect.
Going to be the younger guy. All right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Have a good one.